What's up everybody, I hope you're having an amazing day so far. I'm Phil, and today's video we're going to check out together the brand new release by Bogren Digital, the BDM Bundle. Let's roll the intro clip and then check out the plugin. Thank you everybody for tuning in today's video, highly appreciate it. We're going to check out in today's video, as I said before, the BDM Bundle, which is an extension to their Ampknob series, which now tailors all of the Marshall high gain tones you could think of. I for one have to say I'm pretty excited for this release because I have been recently going on a spree, on a tone hunt in regard of Marshall tones. You can already see the Marshall JVM Joe Satriani, which is over here in the background. Right above that one I got the regular JVM, which both had a video recently on the channel. Not sure if the Joe Satriani has been yet released, but I definitely recorded that already. So I'm actually exactly in the right timing, in the right place over here, because I'm kind of, indulging into these tones, and the release time of this BDM bundle for me is perfect. So that's why I personally checked them out as soon as I found out about them, and I really liked what I was hearing, so I reached out proactively to Jacek from Bogren Digital and I asked if they want to provide me some licenses for some content creation, and they were generously enough to do so. So this is technically a sponsored video, although I'm not being paid and although I have reached out to the company and not the other way around. With that out of the way, all opinions and thoughts are of course mine. I'm not obliged to tell you anything. I'm not obliged to create any certain content. They do not get to see this before release. I'm free to say whatever I want. I simply got the licenses and therefore this is a sponsored video. The BDM bundle consists of 3 different amplifiers, or 3 different plugins which have been added into the Ampknob series. We first got the BDM 75, which is a plugin based off of a Plexi, which has belonged to Mill & Collin, has then been, as it seems, sold off to Jens Bogren, and he then used it in order to encapsulate the sound of that in the BDM 75. Really cool stuff. I do believe it's featured, that particular Plexi amp, on their latest album, SOS. Really thick sounding, cool tones, which are on that album. Next up, we got the BDM 410 JVH, which is obviously based off the Marshall JVM. That particular Marshall JVM, Jacek told me, has been used on Opeth's Watershed. So pretty cool stuff that we kind of get those legendary tones into a plugin format. And last but not least, we got the Bad Boy. Now, I'm a huge Olga Valverta fan. He's one of my favorite YouTube content creators nowadays, and if you are familiar with his channel, you know what the Bad Boy is. The Bad Boy is his absolute favorite JCM 800 amplifier, and it really sounds phenomenal, both in his YouTube videos and as well in plugin form in the Bogren Digital Bad Boy. Let's talk about the signal chain before we actually get to check out the plugins. I got this beautiful guitar over here. This is my trusty Solar A 2.6 lime neon with the Black Heaven by Lundgren pickups built in there. So the pickup set, both of them are replaced. Really, really awesome guitar, really awesome pickups. They do combine perfectly well. That goes into my Audience ID 44 Mark I, and then I am boosting everything up by 6 dB in order to match the gain level which has been expected by the plugins over here. The headroom of the audio interface is higher than what the plugins is expecting, so I'm kind of overcompensating that to begin with. First off, we got the Ampknob BDM 75. Now let's talk about the setup in general, the graphical user interface in general, and then we're going to check out the respective individual elements as we walk through the plugins. Down below over here, we got an input slider, we got an output slider. Technically, I could do those 6 dB of input gain over here as well, but I have decided to do that with an external plugin so that it's active for all of the plugins, and leave this then at 0. Then we got some special stuff over here which is individual to that particular plugin, like in this case the reverb knob. Not every of the Bogren Digital Ampknob plugins have this reverb knob over here, but this one particularly does. Then we got a tuner over here, works pretty well, standard tuner. You can set up the frequency, you can set up this to be muted, works well. And then we got the cabinet section. Now the cabinet section is powered by IRDX. This allegedly is supposed to replicate the saturation which you get when cranking up a speaker. I personally am not so convinced about this IRDX technology. It does make a little bit of a difference in the low end thump, but for me personally, I think that a good saturation plugin can do a very similar thing, but nonetheless, it's nice to have that included over here. And we got two different cab sections, one being the modern cab, one being the vintage cab. This will be basically a theme which you will find throughout all of the BDM plugins, that they basically got these two cabinets, and the bad boy also has a lead cab. You can also load your own impulse responses or completely disable the cab section. If you want to use this for live use through a power amp or something, you are free to do so. Over here in the settings, we got different stuff which we can set up. DSP quality, input mode, we can show the values, and over here we can set up a gate, which is on by default. I'm going to leave all of this stuff on by default. All right, now let's check out what the BDM 75 actually sounds like. Straight out of the box, all of the settings are set to the respective default settings. So this is what it sounds like. Now, at first, I thought for myself, yikes, that's a very spiky sound, but it's going to definitely get better. What we have to take into consideration is that an individual thing of the BDM 75 is this channel jumper mode. So when you are using like the 4 inputs of a plexi, then you have the possibility to jump channels that will change the circuitry of the first gain stage and then thus change the tonal characteristics. Let's see what that looks, or let's hear what that sounds like. I'm going to turn off the reverb for this test. So we get a little bit more gain, which is cool. Now we can get into that, I would say pop punk territory. I totally suck in this genre, so don't take my example for the golden standard. There are people who can do way better stuff with this type of tone. But I'm more of that high gain guy, and I know that when you crank up a plexi with the volume, then also the gain is going up because you are pushing the power amp saturation, and they're nicely interlocked with each other. So let's do that. Let's crank up the gain substantially to 7.5 is a good sweet spot. And the tonality completely changes, like more oomph, more low end, more gain, all of this. It's fuller, it's more fleshed out. So really cool stuff. Really good sound. Let's check out what Cabinet 1 sounds compared to Cabinet 2. Not that much of a difference, to be honest, but it is a little bit more mellowed out. That's my personal feeling when using this one. awesome tone. Yeah, there's nothing for me to complain about this one. I could easily work with this one. You just give me that tone, I'm happy. Now, I personally would go ahead and maybe set up a little bit of an high pass over there. Let me try to set the bandwidth. Okay. And with a little bit EQ work, you can actually really sculpt the tone to your liking. But for what it is, this is a very good bass reference tone. Let's move over to the BDM 410 JVH. Now, the JVH is obviously based off the JVM, and that's exactly the type of tone which you're getting out of this one. I really love this plugin. Let's go to the factory default settings, and let's rip. Now this has a little bit more of a dry tone to it. There's this pedal stuff and the mode. Let's first walk through what the pedal does and then through the different modes. So it basically is kind of a boost pedal. I would assume maybe an SD1 or a tube screamer. And now let's go through the different modes. Now, of course, obviously, the higher you go, the more gain you get. Now, I do not know which modes they are using on the real JVM when it comes to these particular modes, but I have the feeling that mode 3 is the OD1 in Amber, which is one of the favorite tones of basically everybody using the JVM. And now I'm going to use the gain to my likings in order to achieve that tone by ignoring the pedal for the time being. I really like this tone over here. It's super easy to play. I'm not sure how to kind of convey that properly, but when you use the JVM, I personally like to use it without a pedal boost because it has a very dry sound to it in general, but also a little bit of a muddy sound, of a muffled sound. But it feels really good to play on its own when you plug in the guitar straight into the amplifier. The gain is not on par with high gain amplifiers like the EVH, like that super brutal chuggy tightness, especially when you boost it, but it has its own character and makes it very cool to play with, very fun to play with. And I get the same vibe off of this with this particular setting over here. And to be honest, I'm on the same side when it comes to the actual amp knob, which is a testament to kind of the accuracy with which they kind of encapsulated the tone. I like it more without a pedal. I don't like this type of amp with the pedal engaged. I like it rather to set up the gain and maybe do something then on the EQ in the aftermath, you know? Yeah, just cutting a little bit of the low frequencies is exactly the right thing for the BDM 410 JVH. I don't need anything more out of this one. Let's go ahead and on to mode 4 with less gain. That's too much gain. That's too much gain. I have the feeling this is one of the red modes, and these are a little bit too much in my opinion. Yeah, mode 3 is where it is. Set up the gain to 7.5. Let's check out the different cabinets. This more mellowed out feel gets a little bit more apparent on the JVH than it was on the 75. Love it. Last but definitely not least is the legendary BDM 800 Bad Boy. The JCM 800 by Euge Valluwerta. Really cool stuff which he has shown on his channel so far. He made an awesome review on this actual, and that's how I actually found out about the BDM bundle in the first place. So social media and marketing over YouTube actually does work. All right, yeah, what we got over here is the same thing like on the other amp knobs. We got a volume and then we got a pedal, which we can engage at times. And over here we got the effects settings. So we can set up the delay, we can set up the reverb with some specific things. And another thing is that we have the lead cabinet. Let's first check out what it sounds like straight out of the box. Nice, cool tones. They are a little bit thinner than the other amps. You know, a little bit more on that, you know, ice picky side on the highs. So what I like to do is, of course, I like to crank up things a little bit. And I know that this is very, very special on how it reacts. Let's just check out, without the effects, without the pedal, how the volume reacts. You hear how you get that complete fuzzing out the closer you get to 10. So the sweet spot is somewhere around 7 in my personal opinion. Next, let's find out what the best cabinet is. So modern cab. I personally like most the vintage or the lead cab. Let's go with the vintage cab. And now let's engage the pedal. I know that the pedal is Eugen Valverta's SD1 from, I think, the 90s or something. Really sounds great. It does exactly what I would expect of an SD1 set as a boost to do. It tightens up the amp, it pushes the mids a little bit forward, makes it a little bit sharper overall. Yeah, cool stuff. Really cool stuff, especially for that thick hard rock type tone. Let's see how it fares when we're going with full-blown thrash stuff. Bonus segment, we're going to check out the Marshall JVM against the Ampknob JVH, 410 JVH. So I want to check out now how close does the Ampknob get to the real deal, but I'm doing that, of course, with taking a grain of salt because I cannot have the same setup, the same settings like they used in the Ampknob plugin. I'm aware of that. I don't know what they set up back then. I don't know what reactive load they have. That always has a difference in how the output transformer kind of shapes a frequency response out of that. So all of these parameters are not under my control. I only can check, do they get within the same ballpark? Do they sound like sounds coming from the same type of amplifier? That's what I can check over here. So what you're gonna see is the following. Whenever this pink track is soloed out, then the amp knob is active, and if it's the other way around, over here green, then you're gonna hear the actual real amplifier. We're gonna start with the amp knob, then move over to the green one. I'm just gonna play similar riffs and then flick along as I do so. And I have to say, they do sound different. I do prefer the real amp but it's super close. It's really cool that the 410 JVH gives me the same vibe in how it sounds. It's really awesome. Really cool stuff. I could now go ahead and maybe take an EQ over here. So I prepared already a preformed EQ after the amp knob to get maybe even a little bit closer. Not exactly the same, but just getting that one step by step closer to the real deal. Again, the amp knob, and then flicking over to the real deal. Really cool. I'm really impressed by the amp knob. One thing which I should mention is that I took the time to rebias my Marshall JVM a little bit warmer, not super hot or something, but I just made sure that I got both pairs of the EL34s dialed in exactly the same when it comes to the bias current, so there's no crossover distortion. I'm not sure if anything has been done to the JVM, which the amp knob is modeled after, so that did a little bit in regards of how organic and thick the amp is sounding. Yeah, I mean, I really love my JVM, but the amp knob is doing a really decent job over here. Let's wrap up this video. I have to say, I'm genuinely impressed by what the BDM bundle is offering over here. The tones which I'm getting are really enjoyable. This is my favorite pack out of all of the Ampknob stuff, even though I love 5150s, and the BDH did a really good job. I think that the BDM bundle is even more fun. Maybe it's the timing, because I'm currently on a tone hunt spree when it comes to Marshall amps, and it just happened to come at the same time when I have anyways an interest in that type of tone. Maybe there's that. But anyways, this is a really cool plugin suite. The plugin suite goes round about for 99 euros. I think the single plugins are 49 euros. There's going to be a link in the description below where you can get 10% off, I believe it is. This is an affiliate link. I get a small kickback out of that one. If you want to use it, I would be super grateful if you could do that. And yeah, with that out of the way, what else to say? You heard it for yourself. There's actually a free trial for 14 days, so go down below, grab yourself the actual plugins, the free trial, and check it out for yourself. With that out of the way, thank you so much everybody for watching. Appreciate it. Gonna see you in the next video. Until then, keep it metal.